Hi, everyone. I'm going to give you a quick run through about thinking about information sent and what's meant by that term. And really, the idea is meant to get you further into the head of your users. What are people trying to do? And what are the contexts in which they're coming to you? And what is their motivation, right? So you're trying to think about what exactly is it they're trying to do and how can I fulfill that? And what you're hoping is that you can evoke some kind of emotional reaction because if it's just about information, they're going to be selfish and they're going to get their information and they're going to leave. And what you want to do is provide some level of value that creates a connection so that people look at you and say, wow, you're like my smart friend. Um, so I'll give you an example. So I've got some old speakers that I've had for 30 years and I'm cheap. So I didn't want to just get rid of them when the woofers went bad. So what I did is started looking for replacement woofers. So what did I do? I did what most people do. I started searching around the internet through Google and through Amazon, right? So Amazon gets us there. And why do I go? Because I know Amazon has everything. It's the everything store, right? Now, I may hate Amazon because they're one of the biggies, right? Facebook, Amazon, Google. You just want to not like them because they're powerhouses and they control everything we do. But then reality sets in, and I'm like, what I really want is a good, reliable woofer that's relatively inexpensive or affordable that I can do, and I'll be satisfied with it. So I go to Amazon, I search, I find this, and here's this thing, right? So here's a woofer, it's got all the parts and pieces. So what do I do with this? I've never heard of Goldwood Sound. And I'm trying to figure out, will this work with my speaker? So what do we do? Yes, we look at the ratings, right? So we're going to clue into the ratings. And what do we do with that? So if we're thinking in an information sense, right? I'm following down, I click on the ratings, and what does it give me? It summarizes the ratings for me. It makes it easy for me because now I can look at this and I can say, oh, 70% of the people gave it a 5 star, 17% of people out of 95 ratings gave it a 4 star rating. So I've got 87% of the people who rated this gave it a 4 or a 5 star rating. Hey, that must be pretty good. But I might also look at it and say, well, it's only 95 ratings out of the entire world. So maybe that's not the most reliable thing. So I'm weighing all of these things very quickly. So what do? I look at some of them and see what people say. So I go to the best ones and the worst ones, and I go to the ones that people say, oh, yeah, they found this helpful. So 4 people found this one helpful. The sub sounded fantastic when I first installed it. It had already stopped working correctly in less than a few months. So what did I do? I didn't buy this one. And maybe this is a perfectly good woofer, but I went based on that. That was the quick way I made this judgment and ended up buying a completely different woofer. That's really what's at work in the information sent. So what you're trying to do is you are quickly trying to gauge value. And I'm gauging that value based on what I already know. So I know something about speakers. I know something about electronics and audiophile stuff. And so maybe I'm digging into that saying, okay, here's what I think. And then I am going to make some judgments very quickly. Remember, we're lazy thinkers. So we're going to be making very quick judgments depending on how high my level of need is. So in this, my level was fairly high. I want to replace the woofer, but it's not life changing. I didn't have to do this. It was something that was nice and I'd be roaming around. And so that's where I look around. And then I move forward to think about, oh, okay, let's look at the whole context. So the whole context is Amazon, the ratings, the picture. I'm looking at all of that to make some judgments to see, is this the information I'm looking for to give me the answer that I need? And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to answer questions. So be thinking about, does something every step along the way help people answer the questions? So if we look at this, right, link name should be clear. So the one thing you don't want to do is read more, right? You don't want to have a link that says that or click here, right? Because that doesn't tell you anything about what you're going to get. So if you want to say more prices, that might be something that's more effective. Or if you want to have something where the words mean or show me what I'm going to get. So if I take this paragraph as an example, words that are not easily understood by the target audience, that's linking to a study that talks about, oh, here's what the problem is, and here's a research article we wrote about that. So what you want to do is make sure that the words that you're linking provide some value and help me make a judgment about whether I should click through on that. And then the other piece of this reading that I like so much is make it worth the click through. Don't fall for clickbait. It's not enough just to get a page view. What you want is people to click through, get to the page, and read the entire thing and find value in it because that reflects on your brand. And we're going to be thinking a lot about that, right? The term that they used in this reading, brand is experience. So what we have to do is give them a fulfilling experience in our online community, and that's going to reflect on the community as a whole. So here's the framework, one of the frameworks that we're going to be using to help us think about these ideas, okay? So I really want you to become familiar with this pathway to engagement, because if we think through the steps of what do people do, sometimes if you're in the marketing sector, you've heard of the marketing funnel. And basically the idea is, where is that customer in terms of how they see my brand and their decision to make a purchase? So we're doing the same thing here. We're sort of saying, okay, where am I in the path to engaging with this online community? So the first thing we have to do is get people's attention. They have to know who we are. If they have no idea who we are, how are they ever going to find us, right? So we've got to get their attention. And once we get their attention, we have to keep them by getting them to use our site or use our community in some fashion, so that what ends up happening is they use it so often, it becomes a habit and it becomes a part of their way of being, right? It becomes part of their routine, and they establish a connection with who we are through that routine, right? So let's say you're somebody who loves Mudhouse. Someone like me. I love Mudhouse, right? So why do I love Mudhouse? Because it became a habit. It was a place I would stop by before work. I'd go and get a coffee. I got to know the owners. I liked the coffee. I liked the prices. It was part of my routine. And then it was so that it's like, if I think of coffee, I think of Mudhouse. I have the connection to them. And then ultimately, do I participate in that community in some fashion? Now you might say, okay, a coffee shop. What's the community? Do you really participate? Well, if I have to do some work, maybe I'll go to Mudhouse and stay there, pre-COVID, obviously. But I might go there and do my work. I might do some writing. If I have to meet someone and have a conversation, I'll go to Mudhouse. Hey, how about we meet at Mudhouse? So that's where this community aspect comes in, because it's more than a cup of coffee. It's a place to spend some time. So this is sort of the big picture feeling, the big idea. So how do we make this tangible? So if I think through these steps, search engine optimization is what's going to get us found in Google and other search engines. So we have to think about our website in that way. That's also where having informational links or links with useful names is really important, because what Google does is it evaluates your website in terms of usefulness as well. And one of the key points that it looks at to make a decision about your website is the links. So it looks at, where are you linking, and does it provide the information that people want? It also looks at links to your website. So if a lot of people are linking to your website, then that also becomes important. But it's breaking down your page. This is one of the reasons we're learning HTML, because it breaks down your page and looks at what is the meaning behind the page, and does it actually answer the question when people Google or ask a question in Google. So usage is about design, right? So SEO gets them to the site because people are Googling and they're doing search, or maybe we're getting their attention through social and it gets them to our site. Then once they get to our site, it has to have the design to pull them in, right? And remember when we were looking at the Berkshire Hathaway site, we were bashing that pretty well because it was like, okay, that's web version for 1994, as Matt said. So one of the things that we want to do here is make sure that we are designing it in such a way that it pulls people in. Make it easy to use. And also, this is where the information sent reading is so important. Not only make sure that it's easy to use, but easy to orient yourself to what's going on, right? Because I'm trying to make sense of this context very quickly to see if it fulfills what I want out of it. Always think of that selfish aspect in the mind of the user, okay? So then what I want to do is to think about, okay, with this online community, as I use it, is the content helpful? And does the content inspire some kind of emotional reaction or connection to it? And maybe I also find that in the brand's social media. So maybe I follow their Twitter account, or maybe I join their Facebook group because there's information that they are providing, or they are doing something that is very, very useful that I want to remain connected to. Now, here's where the content and the equation starts to change a little bit. That's why it's on a different level, because it's the people in the community, what they're doing is they are starting to take action. It started with the social media because they decided to follow. Now what they're doing is they are making actual content choices by subscribing to newsletters. There's more skin in the game, right? They have to download podcasts. And if your brand has in-person events, they show up to the in-person events. And then finally, the last part is this idea of, do they actually participate in the community? So if I have a way to include them, to have them participate with user-generated content, maybe they submit posts, maybe they submit photographs, maybe they contribute in some fashion, even if it's comments. Comments are a little bit more than a like or doing something on social media. It's actually taking the time to engage with content in our community space. That's kind of the ultimate in engagement. So I really want you to think about this aspect as you're building your brand and building your community, because what we want to do is, if I think about the brand and the community, typically we see them on opposite ends, right? The brand is the one that's delivering information to the community, and they're not necessarily equals. But in this engagement framework, we're really thinking about this. Once they're using that kind of content and they are taking that level of engagement, hopefully now it's a two-way street. And now we've connected, and it's a conversation, a collaboration, not just a one-way, I'm going to tell you what it is, right? And one of the things that I noticed in several of the website ideas, the initial ideas, is they were very one-way. What it was is, we're going to set up a website that is for this particular brand, and the brand is going to do this. Or I'm setting up a website for a particular person for their business, right? That's not enough. You can't just have a like, okay, here's who we are, here's the picture of our people, here's our prices, right? It's, what's something more? What's something more you're going to do for me and engage me, to think about those kinds of things. Now, I wanted to dig a little bit more into the information sent idea, because Google has embraced this idea too. You can really see it at work here in terms of thinking about what people might be looking for. So they've started predicting that. And so if we think of the old Google, we still get this, you type in the thing and you get some pretty perfunctory names and a little bit of information and a little blurb, and okay, I might decide and go to the top one to click on that. So if I'm looking at universities in Missouri, now they've started developing cards for social. So this helps me a little bit more because it's got logos and it's got some information. So it's a little more visual. It makes sense a little more quickly. I might recognize MU right off the bat and go straight to it. But now they're also starting to do this thing of what are the questions that people are asking. And part of this is because Google has so much information on us and they can gather this kind of thing. So they know how to kind of summarize this and provide those cards. This is what's meant by the information sent. So you want to get to the level on your site of, are you creating these kinds of things that what are the questions that people are asking to get to you? And how do you fulfill those answers as quickly and as meaningfully as possible so people start to build a connection towards who you are? Some of it is simple. Some of it, so like if I'm a business site and I come to your homepage, what am I looking for when I go to your homepage? Maybe I want your phone number. Maybe I want your address. Maybe I want to be able to do something like, if it's a nonprofit, how do I donate or volunteer? Those are the things that you're thinking about because it's going to help you on your links, on your buttons, on your navigation. What you're going to do is come up with calls to action. What do people want to do? And you want to activate those as and engage with them as quickly as possible with well-written calls to action on your buttons. That's ultimately what this reading is about, is thinking about, okay, have we done everything possible in our design to orient people quickly, help them answer the questions they want to answer in such a way that they start to build some kind of connection mentally, emotionally to our brand? That's really what this whole information sent idea is about. Okay. All right. Good luck with that, with the reading, and I will see you in class.